Well, who would ever have thought that 55 years ago, when my wife and I first moved to Lafayette, that we would be living just across the street from the Loeb House. Of course, it was not known as the Loeb House then. It was more of a rooming house. But a lot has happened in those 55 years, and today we are here at Loeb House in Lafayette, 7th and Cincinnati Streets, and we're talking with Dick Nagel, who is the proprietor, owner, cook, bottle washer, all of those things.
Bed maker.
Dick, good to see you and good to have you here in your digs.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
This is spectacular.
Thank you.
It's the nicest thing. That's not the nicest thing I can say, but it describes the locale here. And tell us about this. You say you've been in this business for 15 years?
15 years now, yeah. Well, I've owned the house 15 years. We closed on it, it'd be 16 in February. We closed on it and bought it February 1st of 1995. And with the intention, I'd been a hotel manager in town, and I wanted to do a bed and breakfast because there wasn't one in Lafayette. And for all of those who've known me for any period of time, they all know that I'm an old house nut and always have been.
A preservationist.
A preservationist through and through. You know, I own a pair of row houses on Ferry Street that I've been working on since 1980. I was instrumental in restoring the Wolcott House up in my hometown. And so, so it just seemed like doing a bed and breakfast was a perfect way to save an old house and bring it back to its glory. So I looked around for one to buy, and there wasn't anything for sale. So this house had been the Oddfellow Lodge's apartment building, the IOOF, and there was a neon sign over the front door. It said Oddfellow Apartments, and I just went to them and visited with them, and I started talking with them in the winter of '93. And it actually took a year of negotiating with them and talking to them and then doing all the prep work to buy it. But it took quite a while to get them to agree and decide that, yeah, they would sell it.
When you purchased the location and the house, so forth, had there been a lot of architectural changes?
Well, yeah. In Mrs. Loeb passed away in February of 1950. And they bought it immediately and converted it into apartments. And they initially were housing retired lodge members and or widows of their members. In the 50s, apartment living was a lot different than it is today.
Yes, indeed.
And apartments, there wasn't very many people that lived in apartments, so apartments were small and kind of two-room apartments. Your living room and bedroom were the same. You know, you had a hide-a-bed or that type of thing. So they weren't huge apartments, and they set out to and they modernized it. The 50s were all about being modern.
Oh, yes.
You know? So they modernized it. They lowered all the ceilings to 8 feet. They put in short windows, bricked up the top third of the window, basically erasing the Victorian aspects of the house. Now, fortunately, they reused the same woodwork. They just cut it off and lowered it, so when I restored the house, we were able to move it back up, but it's the same woodwork. We had to fill in at the bottoms. They also left all the mantels were here, so the fireplaces were still intact, which was one of the oddest things about it when I first walked into it, with 8-foot ceilings and these big fireplaces. The proportions were...
Something didn't fit.
Yeah, it just, you know, and same thing with the massiveness of the woodwork. It didn't really fit with an 8-foot ceiling either, so, you know, things just felt funny in here to me, but
so to speak.
But so yeah, that was the situation that it was in when I bought it. So we restored it and removed. And you have to remember, and I keep forgetting that sometimes you have to put everything in context because time has moved on so fast, and we've gotten older, and I don't even realize it yet. But the 50s, acoustical tile didn't exist yet, and the drop-in, you know, grid ceiling,
yes.
that didn't exist. Hadn't been invented. So, you know, these were framed-in ceilings with gypsum board, which is the early drywall, but very heavy and very brittle, and a skim coat of plaster on it, and that's how they lowered the ceilings in the thing, you know. So there was a lot of work involved in taking all of that out and restoring the house, repairing plaster crown moldings, ceiling medallions, and all of those kinds of things, not to mention repairing some walls here and there, restoring floors, and all new electrical, plumbing, and heating system.
All of which adds up to an awful lot of work.
Yes.
No question about it. Now, as I remember, at your opening some 15 years ago, that you had various decorators choose a room. Is that not right?
That's correct. We had the opportunity to be the decorator show house for the Symphony Guild. So it was a fundraiser for the symphony.
Yeah.
And 17 local interior designers each came in and decorated a space, which was a great benefit to me and to them. There was about, as I recall, a little over 6,000 people toured the house. It was a huge success for the Symphony Guild in terms of raising money.
Yes.
And I think the decorators got an enormous amount of
Publicity.
exposure out of it, and to see their work. They did a fabulous job throughout the house and worked together so well. It was so much fun to see the creativity flow from 17 designers, which is a little crazy when you have 17 designers and workers in here at the same time, trying to, decorate the entire house.
Stepping on each other,
It's not one room at a time. It was just, organized chaos for about 30 days while it was decorated, but fabulous. It
was beautifully decorated.
Yeah.
As I remember, my wife and I loaned some antiques to one of the decorators.
Probably.
Who used, and then they said, well, we'd like to buy those antiques. And we said, no, they're out of our house.
Yeah.
So we're still living with them, for that matter. Now, how many guests can you accommodate at one overnight, say, when you're full up?
Well, we have 5 guest rooms, and they're all on the second floor. 4 of the rooms have 1 bed in them. Well, I do have 1 room that has 2 double beds in it, and so essentially you can sleep 4 in that room and then 2 in the other 4, so 8 and 4 is 12, I guess, in terms of people. The rooms are large, and I can put a cot in a couple of them, so which we have done. I have 2 or 3 cots that we can set up. But
what is your busiest time of the year, or is there such a thing?
Well, the busiest part of the year is when school starts at Purdue in August. From August through the end of the year is the busiest season. Then January kind of tapers off. Then February starts to pick up around Valentine's Day, and then March gets a little busier. And then April, you get into all the spring activities. Yes. April, graduations in May and June, wedding month. And then July usually tapers off a little bit. And then August starts about. So you kind of build up to a crescendo, and then it drops for a little while, and then it builds up again. So it's kind of a nice season, because by the time you're getting really tired, you get a little break.
For you folks who are watching, we're fortunate enough to be here to see Loeb House at its finest in Christmas decorations. Now, I'll guarantee you with this magnificent Christmas tree that doesn't stay there all year, folks, but we're lucky, and we will be showing you some of that, but we're not emphasizing the Christmas thing because you're open all year.
Oh, yeah. This is a 365-day-a-year business. And, we serve, I serve full breakfast to my guests, a cooked breakfast, in the dining room. And then we also have a tea room, which I understand we're going to talk about a little later.
Yes.
But we've been doing that as well in what originally had been the library and drawing room. And we're sitting in what I use as the parlor now, but was originally either the sitting room, the music room, or the ladies' parlor, depending on.
I noticed the grand piano back here.
Yeah. Guests use this room. They sit down here. The people that were here for graduation this weekend had their kids and friends over. They all were over last night to sip on a little wine and bask in the afterglow of graduation of their daughter and that kind of thing.
I guess I never thought of that, but it would be a wonderful thing for, say, of parents or grandparents of students, or to come here, spend the weekend, and then have a kind of a Victorian Christmas gathering without calling it a party, I would say, or maybe you can.
They just had stop it, and that's fine with me for them to have friends in, but these folks are from North Carolina. So, they had their daughter and several of her friends came over, and
I think
it was just a gathering.
That would be a unique graduation gathering here in these lovely surroundings. How old is the house, Dick?
Well, it was, that was one of the biggest challenges when I first did the house, was finding out when it was built, because it's an Italianate. It's it has the bay windows on the front. It looks like something right out of the 1850s or 60s. It's built in the row house style, and I kept searching the courthouse in the 1850s and 60s and couldn't find any record of it. But there is in the 1860s a gap where there had been a fire in the courthouse, and there's a several-year gap of records that are missing, so you kind of thought maybe it fell into that. And then when we were redoing the house, in what had been the master bedroom upstairs, or the morning room off of the master bedroom, the wallpaper hanger and the plasterer signed and dated the house April 12th, 1882. 1882. So I kind of took that to be the completion. I went back to the courthouse, started digging there, and sure enough, found the evidence that it had been built then. So it seems very odd. This is such an 1850-60 Italianate style house, and the 1880s was all about Eastlake architecture. And so trying to figure that out, and Emerson Knight is the man who built the house. He moved here from New York City, and I believe that he was duplicating the house they lived in. I suspect they lived in a brownstone in New York. I can hear the conversation. Come home, honey, we're going to move to Indiana. And she said, I just got this house the way, I'm not leaving my house. And he said, I'll build you this house out in Indiana. And so I think possibly that's a scenario that might have occurred.
Well, that's a good story, and it makes a lot of sense to me. But a lot of times people draw up plans of a house they're going to build, and that might be in 1855, and then their luck runs out, or their plans changed and so forth. When they finally do it, they're using the plans they drew up in 1855, and I just made all that up.
Well, the Victorians were so current, though. They were so into whatever today's style was. There are houses in this town that were built as Italianates initially and have been converted to Queen Anne's when Queen Anne became popular. In fact, toured one last Sunday on the Wabash Valley Trust Christmas tour. And I was thinking about that. So it's very odd that you would build a house that was 20 years out of date, if you had money at all.
Yeah.
And apparently Mr. Knight did. I mean, he came here and built Lafayette Grain Company at the bottom of Ferry Street at the river. He was an entrepreneur, a businessman. He got involved in building the first telephone company in Lafayette. And by 1895 had moved back to New York City and built a telephone company there, and sold the elevator to the Balls, sold the house to the Loebs, and then they lived in it from 1895 until 1950.
At the risk of getting off on a subject which we both could talk about for a long time, I'll say that I hope something good happens to the Solar Baker house.
I do too.
And that's frightening right now.
That is, and you could just see this scenario coming down the road as it sat there for so long. It's a great heartache to see that happening.
That's subject for a whole nother television show. Well, your decorations, and I'm not talking about the Christmas decoration, I'm talking about the wall hangings, the window treatment, and so forth. Have this been researched? Did you design these yourself? Tell us about that.
No, I was not trying to create a museum. Mm-hmm. And so and even I told the decorators this when we did the show house, said this doesn't have to be historically correct. I just want it to feel period-ish. I want it to feel appropriate to this style and time, but it doesn't have to be historically accurate. I just didn't want ultra-contemporary or things that were not in keeping with the style of house. So it's it's just appropriate things, not researched. There was I tried to do a lot of research about the house, and there's just almost nothing. We had to do all the restoration work from clues that we found in the house as we were dismantling the things that had been done to it.
Don't go away. We're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about food and serving of food and where you serve the food and a few other things with Dick Nagel here at Loeb House.